Get out of the car, now!" The scream tore through the night air, shattering the calm of a routine traffic stop. Officer Greg Strickland didn't see a man. He saw a target. He didn't see a driver. He saw a suspect. He certainly didn't see Jordan Banks, the Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District, a man who had put more corrupt officials behind bars than Strickland had written parking tickets. Strickland thought he was predator, and Jordan was prey. He had no idea that the man he was currently slamming against the hood of a $100,000 SUV was wearing a wire, and that this arrest wouldn't just cost him his badge, it would cost the city $15 million and expose a conspiracy that went all the way to the mayor's office. This is the story of how arrogance met the law and lost. The Georgia humidity was thick enough to chew on, hanging heavy over Interstate 85 just south of Atlanta. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Jordan Banks adjusted the climate control in his brand-new obsidian black Range Rover autobiography. The leather seats were still settling in, smelling of rich manufacturing and success. At 38 years old, Jordan was the youngest Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney in the district's history. He was tired. He had just spent 14 hours at the federal courthouse preparing a RICO case against a human trafficking ring. All he wanted was to get home to his wife, Sarah, and their sleeping 2-year-old son. He was driving exactly 65 miles per hour in a 65 zone. He was in the right lane. His hands were at 10 and 2. Jordan knew the law better than he knew the back of his own hand. He knew that a black man in a luxury SUV in this part of the county was already probable cause in the eyes of some. He saw the lights before he heard the siren. Blue and red exploded in his rearview mirror. Jordan sighed, the sound heavy with resignation, not fear. He checked his speedometer. 65. He checked his blinker. He signaled right, slowly moved to the shoulder, and put the car in park. He turned off the engine. He turned on the interior dome light, an old trick his father had taught him to show he had nothing to hide. He rolled down all 4 windows. Then he placed his hands on the top of the steering wheel, fingers spread wide. He waited. In the side mirror, he saw the officer approaching. The man was walking with a swagger that Jordan recognized instantly. It was the John Wayne walk, hand resting on the holster, chest puffed out, chin high. The name tag on the uniform read, Strickland. Officer Greg Strickland was a 10-year veteran of the force, known in the precinct locker room as the Hammer. He didn't write warnings. He wrote citations, and he made arrests. Tonight he was bored, and a blacked-out Range Rover with out-of-state dealer tags looked like entertainment. Strickland shined his mag light directly into Jordan's eyes, blinding him. "License and registration," Strickland barked, not even offering a polite evening greeting. "Good evening, officer," Jordan said, his voice calm, measured and baritone. "My license is in my front left pocket. My registration is in the glove box. I am going to reach for them slowly." "I didn't ask for a narration, boy," Strickland spat. "Just get the ID." Jordan's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Boy." The word hung in the humid air like a threat. "I am reaching for my wallet," Jordan stated again, moving his left hand slowly to his jacket pocket. "Whoa!" Strickland dropped his hand to his gun, unsnapping the holster. "Watch the hands. You reaching for something?" "My ID, as requested," Jordan said, freezing. "You got weapons in this car?" Strickland asked, shining the light into the back seat. "Drugs? Large amounts of cash?" "I have no weapons. I have no illegal substances. I am a federal prosecutor, officer. I am on my way home from work." Strickland laughed. It was a dry, ugly sound. "A federal prosecutor. You? In this ride? Yeah, and I'm the tooth fairy. Let me guess, you borrowed it from your uncle?" "It is my vehicle," Jordan said, finally pulling out his badge and ID. He held them out the window. Strickland snatched them. He shone his light on the federal badge. The gold eagle gleamed. Most officers would have backed off right then. Professional courtesy, respect for the hierarchy. But Strickland wasn't most officers. He was an insecure bully who hated being corrected, especially by someone he deemed beneath him. "Federal Prosecutor," Strickland muttered, tossing the badge back onto Jordan's lap with disdain. "That explains the attitude. You think you're above the law?" "I am the law in federal court, officer," Jordan corrected softly. "But tonight, I am just a citizen. Why did you pull me over?" "You swerved," Strickland lied. "Failure to maintain lane." "I didn't swerve. My lane assist technology would have alerted me, and I have a dash cam recording both the road and the cabin." Strickland's eyes narrowed. The mention of the camera didn't make him cautious. It made him furious. He felt his authority slipping. "Get out of the car," Strickland commanded. "For what reason?" Jordan asked, not moving. "Pennsylvania versus Mims allows you to order me out, but I am asking for the articulable suspicion." "I smell marijuana," Strickland announced, playing his trump card. The ghost scent, the lie that couldn't be disproven on the side of the road. Jordan stared at him. "I don't smoke." "I have never smoked. You are lying." "Get out now." Strickland grabbed the door handle and yanked it open. "Or I will drag you out." Jordan knew this moment. He had prosecuted officers for this exact behavior. If he resisted, he would be tased or shot. If he complied, he would be humiliated. Jordan unbuckled his seatbelt. "I am complying under duress," he said, clearly for the dash cam. He stepped out of the vehicle. He stood 6'2", wearing a bespoke suit that cost more than Strickland's car. "Turn around," Strickland shoved him toward the vehicle. "Hands on the hood, spread 'em." The metal of the hood was warm against Jordan's palms. He felt Strickland's hands patting him down, rough, invasive, searching not just for weapons, but for a reason. "Officer," Jordan said, his face pressed against the windshield, "you are making a mistake. I suggest you call your supervisor. Lieutenant Miller knows me." "I don't need a babysitter," Strickland growled, kicking Jordan's legs further apart. "And I don't care who you know. Out here, I'm the supervisor." Strickland finished the pat-down. He found nothing but a Mont Blanc pen and a smartphone. He pulled the phone out and tossed it onto the hood, out of Jordan's reach. "Stay there," Strickland ordered. "If you move, I drop you." Strickland walked back to the open driver's door. He leaned in, tearing through the glove box, the center console, the back seat. He was tossing legal briefs and case files onto the floorboards. Jordan watched his reflection in the dark glass. He was seething, but he was calculating. Fourth Amendment violation. Lack of probable cause. Excessive force. Fabrication of evidence. "Well, well, well," Strickland's voice rang out from inside the car. "What do we have here?" Jordan turned his head slightly. Strickland emerged from the car holding a small, clear plastic baggie with white powder in it. Jordan's blood ran cold. That bag wasn't his. He had never seen it before in his life. "Found this under the seat," Strickland grinned, dangling the baggie in the glare of the headlights. "Looks like cocaine to me, Mr. Prosecutor. Is this part of your federal work?" "That is not mine," Jordan said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming deadly serious. "You planted that?" "Planted?" Strickland laughed, looking at his body cam, which Jordan noticed wasn't even blinking. It was off. "That's a serious accusation. I think you're just a junkie with a fancy job." "My fingerprints won't be on that bag," Jordan said. "But yours will be. And when the lab runs the DNA, they're going to find it came from your evidence locker." Strickland's smile faltered for a second. The man on the hood sounded too confident. Too precise. "Turn around," Strickland snapped. He grabbed Jordan's wrist and twisted it behind his back, hard. "You're under arrest," On what charge? Possession of a controlled substance, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct. Strickland slapped the cuffs on. He tightened them until the metal bit into the bone. "You are ending your career tonight, Strickland," Jordan whispered as he was shoved toward the cruiser. "Shut up!" Strickland slammed Jordan's head against the roof of the squad car before shoving him into the cramped back seat. As Strickland walked around to the driver's side, Jordan shifted in the back seat. He leaned forward. His cufflinks, custom-made silver ovals, glinted in the dark. Strickland didn't know that those cufflinks weren't just jewelry. They were high-definition audio recorders. Jordan wore them to every high-stakes meeting. He had tapped the side of his left wrist when the lights first flashed. Every word, every lie. The sound of the baggie crinkling as Strickland pulled it from his own pocket before pretending to find it. It was all recorded in crystal-clear digital audio. Strickland got into the front seat and keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. I have one male in custody, narcotics possession, requesting a tow for a black Range Rover." "Copy 4 Alpha," the dispatcher crackled. "Be advised, Captain O'Malley is asking for your location. Something about a VIP in the area." "Tell O'Malley I'm busy cleaning up the streets," Strickland smirked, looking at Jordan in the rearview mirror. "Hey, Mr. Prosecutor, how's that view look from back there? Not so high and mighty now, are you?" Jordan leaned back against the hard plastic seat. He closed his eyes. "Officer Strickland," Jordan said calmly, "I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember exactly how good you feel right now, because it is the last time in your life you will ever feel happy." Strickland scoffed and put the car in drive. They drove in silence toward the precinct. Strickland thought he was bringing in a trophy. He didn't realize he was transporting a Trojan horse. The precinct smelled of floor wax, stale coffee, and misery. It was a smell Jordan knew well, but usually he was on the other side of the glass, wearing a visitor's pass, not handcuffs. Strickland marched Jordan through the back entrance, parading him past the booking desk like a big game hunter showing off a prize buck. "What you got there, Greg?" asked Sergeant Miller, the desk sergeant. Miller was an older man, tired eyes, marking time until his pension. He looked at Jordan, then at Jordan's suit, then at the cuffs. His brow furrowed. "That's a sharp suit for a Tuesday night." "Got him on the I-85, Strickland boasted, slamming Jordan's file on the high counter. "Possession with intent. Cocaine. And get this, he says he's a federal prosecutor." Miller stopped typing. He looked at Jordan over his reading glasses. He recognized the face. He had seen it on the news just last week, announcing the indictment of the city council chairman. Miller's face went pale. "Greg," Miller said, his voice low, "can I see you for a second?" "Book him first," Strickland said, ignoring the warning tone. "I want him printed and mugged. I want this in the system before his buddies try to make it disappear." Strickland shoved Jordan toward the fingerprint scanner. "Put your hand on the glass. Don't make me break your fingers." Jordan complied. He was terrified, not for his safety, but for his reputation. A mugshot lived forever. Even if the charges were dropped, the image of him holding that slate would be on the internet within hours. TMZ, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It would destroy his credibility. He could lose his law license. He could lose the RICO case. "Name?" the technician asked, bored. "Jordan Isaiah Banks," Jordan said clearly. The technician typed it in. The computer beeped. A red box flashed on the screen. "Government official. DOJ flagged." Officer Strickland?" the technician said nervously. "The system is flagging him. It says we need to notify the DOJ liaison immediately upon detention." "Glitch," Strickland waved it off. "Override it. He's just a perp tonight." They took the photo. Click. The flash blinded Jordan. In that split second, Jordan made a choice. He didn't look defeated. He didn't look down. He looked straight into the lens with a gaze of cold, burning fury. It wasn't the face of a criminal. It was the face of a man memorizing the features of his executioner. "Take his property," Strickland ordered. Jordan removed his belt, his shoelaces, his watch. Then he slowly removed his cufflinks. He placed them gently on the counter. "Fancy," Strickland sneered, picking one up. "What are these? Platinum?" "Silver," Jordan said. "Family heirloom." "Bag 'em." Strickland tossed them into the clear plastic property bag, along with Jordan's wallet and phone. Jordan watched the bag closely. The cufflinks were still active. The battery life was 12 hours. They were now sitting on the booking counter, recording the conversations of the officers while Jordan was led away. Strickland shoved Jordan into holding cell 4. It was a concrete box with a metal bench and a toilet that hadn't been cleaned in a week. The door clanged shut, a heavy, final sound that echoed in Jordan's chest. "Comfortable?" Strickland grinned through the bars. "Don't worry, Mr. Prosecutor. You'll get used to it. The bigger they are, right?" "Strickland," Jordan said, his voice echoing in the small cell. "I want my phone call." "Phone's broken," Strickland lied. "You can call in the morning." He walked away, whistling. Jordan sat on the cold bench. He closed his eyes. He didn't panic. He began to reconstruct the timeline in his head. He memorized the time of the stop, the conversation, the search. He was building his case. 20 minutes later, he heard voices from the booking desk. The acoustics of the cell block were terrible, carrying sound down the hallway. He could hear Strickland laughing. "Guy thinks he's untouchable. Should have seen his face when I pulled the baggie out. Priceless." Then another voice. "Sergeant Miller. You better be sure about this, Greg. I checked the ID again. That's really him. That's the chief AUSA. If that dope isn't his." "It's his now," Strickland said. Jordan's eyes snapped open. The cufflinks were in the property bag, sitting right next to them on the desk. They had just recorded Strickland admitting to framing him. Jordan smiled in the dark. "Got you." The sun hadn't risen yet when the precinct doors blew open. It was 5:15 a.m. David Sterling did not knock. David Sterling did not ask for permission. He was a partner at Sterling, Holt and Associates, the most feared criminal defense firm in the state. He was wearing a 3-piece suit that cost more than the precinct's annual coffee budget, and he looked like a shark that had just smelled blood in the water. Behind him trailed 2 junior associates carrying briefcases and a videographer recording everything. "I am here for Jordan Banks," David announced to the room. His voice wasn't loud, but it stopped all activity in the station. "And I am here to serve a preservation of evidence letter on this entire department." Sergeant Miller looked up from his coffee, his eyes wide. "Sir, you can't just barge in here." "I have a writ of habeas corpus, signed by Federal Judge Holloway 20 minutes ago." David slammed the paper on the high desk. "Release him. Now. Or I will have U.S. Marshals tearing this building apart, brick by breakfast." The commotion woke Captain O'Malley, who had been sleeping in his office. O'Malley was a good cop, but he was tired and close to retirement. He stumbled out, tucking in his shirt. "What the hell is going on out here?" O'Malley bellowed. "Captain O'Malley!" David turned, his smile razor-sharp. "Your officer, Greg Strickland, arrested the Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney last night on fabricated charges. We are filing suit." "Fabricated?" O'Malley rubbed his face. "Strickland found cocaine. I saw the report." "Strickland planted cocaine," David corrected. "And we can prove it." "Bring Strickland in here," O'Malley ordered Miller, And get Banks out of the cell. Bring him to my office, uncuffed." 10 minutes later, the office was crowded. Jordan sat in a chair, looking immaculate despite the night in jail. He had retied his tie and combed his hair. David stood beside him. Captain O'Malley sat behind his desk, looking nauseous. The door opened, and Strickland walked in. He looked fresh, holding a cup of coffee, seemingly unaware of the storm that had gathered. "You wanted to see me, Cap? I was just heading out." Strickland stopped. He saw Jordan. He saw the expensive lawyer. He saw the camera. "Sit down, Greg," O'Malley said, his voice dangerously quiet. "What's this?" Strickland laughed nervously. "Lawyer already. Fast worker." "Did you plant drugs on this man's car?" O'Malley asked bluntly. "What?" "No." Strickland feigned outrage perfectly. "I pulled him over for swerving. I smelled weed. I searched the car. I found coke. It's a clean bust, Cap. He's just trying to intimidate us with his fancy title." Jordan finally spoke. "Officer Strickland, did you handle the evidence baggie before you found it?" "I told you. I found it under the seat. I picked it up with gloves. Standard procedure," Strickland lied. "And the body cam?" David asked. "Malfunctioned." Strickland shrugged. "Battery died. Happened right when I pulled him over. Bad luck." "Bad luck indeed," Jordan said. He reached into the property bag which had been brought into the office. He pulled out the silver cufflinks. Strickland frowned. "What are you doing with those?" Jordan pressed a tiny button on the side of the left cufflink. A blue LED blinked. He placed it on the captain's desk. "Captain," Jordan said, "these are high-fidelity audio recorders. They activate with a double tap. I tapped them when I saw the lights." Strickland's face went from smug to grey in a single second. Jordan pulled out his phone, which he had just retrieved, and synced it to the cufflinks via Bluetooth. He pressed play. The audio was crisp. It filled the room. Step, step, step. Footsteps approaching the car. Jordan. "Good evening, officer." Strickland. "I didn't ask for a narration, boy." Captain O'Malley flinched at the slur. Strickland shifted in his chair. The recording played on. The demand to get out. The threat. Then the critical moment. The sound of the car door opening. The sound of papers being thrown. And then the unmistakable sound of a zipper. Rustle, rustle. Strickland, muttering to himself. "Where is it? Okay. Got it." Snap. The sound of the plastic baggie being retrieved from Strickland's own pocket. Then Strickland's voice on the recording, clear as day, before he announced the find to Jordan. "Let's see how you like this, Mr. Federal Man." The room was silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioner and Strickland's heavy breathing. Jordan fast-forwarded. "Sergeant Miller, if that dope isn't his..." Strickland. "It's his now." Jordan stopped the recording. He looked at O'Malley. "That last part," Jordan said softly, "was recorded while my property was sitting on the booking desk, while I was in the cell." Captain O'Malley stood up slowly. His face was purple with rage. He looked at Strickland. The look was not of a supervisor to a subordinate. It was a look of pure disgust. "Badge," O'Malley whispered. "Cap, wait, that's doctored. He's using AI or something." Strickland stammered, sweat pouring down his forehead. "You can't believe this guy." "Gun!" O'Malley barked, louder. "Cap, come on, 10 years. I'm good police." "You are a criminal," O'Malley screamed, slamming his hand on the desk so hard the coffee mug jumped. "You just framed a federal prosecutor. You destroyed this department. Give me your badge and your gun right now, or I will take them off your corpse." Strickland, trembling, unclipped his badge. He placed it on the desk, then his gun. "Greg Strickland," O'Malley said, his voice shaking. "You are under arrest for perjury, fabrication of evidence, false imprisonment, and official misconduct. Turn around." Strickland looked at Jordan. He looked for mercy. He found none. Jordan's face was stone. "You have the right to remain silent," Jordan quoted Strickland's own words back to him. "I suggest you use it." As Miller handcuffed Strickland, Jordan stood up. He smoothed his suit jacket. "Am I free to go, Captain?" Jordan asked. "Mr. Banks," O'Malley said, looking defeated. "I'm so incredibly sorry. I had no idea." "Save it," Jordan said coldly. "My client is not interested in apologies," David interjected. "We are interested in justice. And, Captain, do not destroy any documents. We will be suing the city, the department, and Officer Strickland personally. We are going to bankrupt this precinct." Jordan walked out of the office, stepping past Strickland, who was being read his rights. Jordan didn't look back. He walked out of the station into the morning sun. But Jordan knew this wasn't over. The legal battle would be long, and Strickland wasn't just a rogue cop. He had friends, dangerous friends in the local drug trade who he had been protecting. By exposing Strickland, Jordan hadn't just won a lawsuit. He had put a target on his own back. As he got into David's car, Jordan's phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered. "You think you're smart, lawyer?" a distorted voice hissed. "You just took down the wrong guy. Watch your back." The line went dead. Jordan looked at the phone. The war had just begun. 3 months had passed since the incident on Interstate 85, but for Jordan Banks, the war had only moved from the roadside to the courtroom. The lawsuit, Banks versus the City of Atlanta and Gregory Strickland sought $15 million in damages. But money was secondary. Jordan wanted the truth. He sat in his home office in the upscale Buckhead district, surrounded by boxes of files. Since the body cam footage and the cufflink audio had leaked to the press, the floodgates had opened. Jordan wasn't Strickland's only victim. He was just the only one with the resources to fight back. "Jordan." Sarah stood in the doorway, holding their son, Leo. Her face was pale. "You need to see this." She held up a tablet. On the screen was a live feed from their front gate security camera. A police cruiser, unmarked but unmistakable, was parked just outside their driveway. It had been sitting there for an hour. "Intimidation," Jordan muttered, his fists clenching. "They're trying to rattle us." "It's working," Sarah whispered. "Someone threw a brick through the windshield of your Range Rover last night. Now this? Jordan, is it worth it? If I stop now..." Jordan stood up, walking to the window. "Strickland wins, and the 50 other people he framed stay in prison. I can't do that. Strickland was currently out on bail, his bond paid for by the Fraternal Order of Police." Despite the damning audio, the police union was fighting dirty. They had launched a smear campaign against Jordan, leaking stories to the tabloids suggesting Jordan had ties to organized crime simply because he had grown up in a rough neighborhood. Jordan's phone rang. It was David Sterling, his lawyer. "We have a problem," David said, his voice tight. "The city attorney is offering a settlement. $2 million. No admission of guilt. And they want a non-disclosure agreement. They want to bury the audio." "Tell them to go to hell," Jordan said. "There's more, Jordan. My investigator found something on Strickland's financials. He's living way above his means on a cop's salary. Boat, vacation home in Florida, private school for his kids. But the money isn't coming from the department. Where is it coming from? Cash deposits, small amounts but frequent, always from the same zip code, the Bluff. That's heroin territory." Jordan's eyes narrowed. Strickland isn't just a dirty cop planting evidence for stats. He's on a payroll. He's taking out the competition for a dealer. Exactly. but we can't prove it without a witness, and everyone is terrified of him." That night, the threat escalated. Jordan was working late when the power to his house was cut. The darkness was sudden and absolute. The backup generator kicked in with a hum, flooding the perimeter with security lights. Jordan ran to the master bedroom, grabbing his personal firearm from the safe, a Sig Sauer P226. He ushered Sarah and Leo into the panic room, disguised as a walk-in closet. "Stay here," he ordered. "Call 911. Call Agent Kowalski at the FBI." Jordan moved through the hallway, the gun heavy in his hand. He heard the sound of glass breaking downstairs. He crept down the staircase, his socks silent on the hardwood. Shadows danced in the foyer. Two men, dressed in black with ski masks, were pouring gasoline on his living room rug. "Make it quick," one whispered. "Strickland wants this place to burn." Jordan stepped into the light, raising his weapon. "Federal agent, drop it!" The men froze. They hadn't expected him to be armed. They hadn't expected him to be ready. One of the intruders reached for his waistband. Bang! Jordan fired a warning shot into the floorboard, inches from the man's foot. The deafening crack echoed through the house. "The next one goes in your knee." Jordan's voice was a low growl. "On the ground. Now!" Sirens wailed in the distance, not the local police, who might take their time, but the FBI units Sarah had called. As the intruders surrendered, Jordan pulled the mask off the one who had spoken. He didn't recognize the face, but he saw the tattoo on the neck. It was a gang sign associated with the West Side Kings. Strickland had sent hitmen to a federal prosecutor's house. He had crossed the line from corruption to domestic terrorism. The attempted arson at the bank's residence changed the nature of the war. It was no longer a civil dispute over a roadside stop. It was now a federal racketeering investigation. The FBI moved Jordan and his family into a secure, undisclosed location. A sleek, cold apartment in Midtown Atlanta, guarded by agents with submachine guns. Jordan sat at a mahogany table, his laptop glowing with spreadsheets. Across from him sat Special Agent Anthony Kowalski, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from a block of granite. Kowalski was a 20-year veteran of the Bureau's Public Corruption Unit. He didn't care about luxury SUVs or bespoke suits. He cared about the rot in the system. "We followed the crumbs, Jordan," Kowalski said, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. "Strickland isn't just a rogue cop. He's the premier logistics coordinator for the West Side Kings." Jordan flipped through the pages. There were surveillance photos of Strickland, out of uniform, meeting with a man known as Darnell Big D Hayes, the undisputed kingpin of the city's heroin trade. "They have a symbiotic relationship," Kowalski explained. "Hayes provides the product, and Strickland provides the legal removal of the competition. If a rival dealer moves into a territory Hayes wants, Strickland pulls them over, plants a baggie, and sends them to the precinct. The dealer goes to prison, the product is seized, and then cycled back to Hayes through the evidence locker, and Strickland gets a 5-figure kickback." "But why me?" Jordan asked, his voice low. He had to know who I was eventually. "Arrogance," Kowalski said simply. He saw a black man in a $100,000 car and made an assumption. By the time he realized you were a federal prosecutor, his ego wouldn't let him back down. He thought he was too big to fail because he has protection higher up. Jordan paused, his finger hovering over a photo of a black sedan parked outside a high-end steakhouse. "How high?" "Councilman Edward Graves." Kowalski dropped the name like a lead weight. Jordan felt a chill. Graves was the chairman of the Public Safety Committee. He was the man who controlled the police budget, the man who gave the annual Officer of the Year awards. He had been on the news just last night, calling Jordan's lawsuit a shakedown of a decorated officer. Graves gets a cut of the street profits to keep internal affairs looking the other way, Kowalski continued. But we need more than photos of cars outside restaurants. We need a confession. We need the money exchange. The breakthrough came 48 hours later. One of the men Jordan had held at gunpoint during the arson attempt, a low-level enforcer named Trayvon Trey Sims, had broken under interrogation. Faced with 20 years for attempted murder and arson, Trey decided to trade his loyalty for a chance at a life outside a cage. "Strickland is meeting me tonight," Trey told the feds while hooked up to a polygraph. "He's pissed. He said the fire was supposed to be the end of it. He's supposed to give me the rest of the 10 grand for the job at the rail yard." Jordan stood up. "I'm going." "Absolutely not," Kowalski barked. "You're a witness and a victim. You stay in the van." "I am the Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney," Jordan countered, his eyes burning with a cold, professional fury. "I am the one who will be signing the indictments. I need to see the look on his face when the world falls in on him. I'm going in the surveillance van, or I'm calling the director in D.C. Kowalski stared at him for a long beat, then sighed. "Fine. But you stay behind the glass." The rail yard on the edge of the city was a graveyard of rusted steel and overgrown weeds. The air was thick with the smell of creosote and old rain. It was 2 a.m. Jordan sat in the back of a nondescript plumbing van, parked 300 yards from the meet point. The interior was a hive of activity. Agents wearing headsets, glowing green monitors showing infrared feeds, and the rhythmic clicking of recording equipment. On the screen, Trey stood by a rusted shipping container, his hands shaking. He was wearing a state-of-the-art wire tucked into his collar. "Target on sight," an agent whispered. A patrol car, Unit 4 Alpha, crept into the yard, its headlights cutting through the gloom. It didn't use its sirens. It moved like a shark in dark water. Strickland stepped out. He wasn't in uniform tonight. He wore a heavy leather jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He looked around, his hand instinctively resting on the grip of his service weapon. "You're late?" Strickland's voice crackled over the van's speakers. "I had to make sure I wasn't followed, man." Trey's voice was high-pitched, convincing in its terror. "The feds are everywhere. That lawyer. Banks. He nearly killed us." Strickland spat on the ground. "Banks is a dead man walking. He just doesn't know it yet. Once the heat dies down from the house fire, Hayes is sending a professional. You and your boys were just the opening act." In the van, Jordan's grip tightened on the edge of the console until his knuckles turned white. "I need my money, Greg," Trey pleaded. "I got to get out of town." Strickland reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. 5,000. That's all you get for a failed job. You were supposed to burn the evidence, not play quick-draw McGraw with a prosecutor. "What about the councilman?" Trey asked, prompted by the earpiece the FBI had given him. "He gonna protect us if the feds come knocking?" Strickland laughed, the same dry, ugly laugh Jordan had heard on the I-85. Graves is already moving the funds to the offshore account. He told the chief to keep the IAA investigation on ice for another month. By the time anyone figures it out, the paperwork will be shredded, and Banks will be a memory. We own this city, Trey. Don't you forget it." Kowalski looked at Jordan. "We have it. Conspiracy, solicitation of murder, and the link to Graves." "Move in," Jordan whispered. "Go! Go! Go!" Kowalski commanded into his radio. The rail yard exploded into light. 4 black SUVs roared from behind the containers, their high beams blinding Strickland. "FBI, drop the weapon! Get on the ground!" Strickland didn't drop. His instincts, honed by years of being the bully, took over. He drew his pistol and spun, looking for a target. "Don't do it, Greg. Jordan's voice boomed over the van's external PA system. Strickland froze. He recognized that voice. He squinted into the glare of the floodlights. Jordan stepped out of the van. He wasn't wearing a suit now. He wore a tactical vest with DOJ emblazoned in high-visibility yellow across the chest. He walked into the circle of light, flanked by 6 agents with rifles leveled at Strickland's chest. "It's over," Jordan said, his voice calm and terrifyingly steady. "We have the audio. We have Trey. We have the offshore accounts Graves was so sloppy with." Strickland's gun hand began to tremble. He looked around at the wall of federal agents. The John Wayne swagger was gone. In its place was the realization that he was a very small man in a very large trap. You set me up," Strickland hissed. "No," Jordan said, taking a step closer. "You set yourself up the moment you decided the badge was a license to be a criminal. You thought I was just a man in a nice car you could step on. You forgot that the law has a long memory." Strickland looked down at the gun in his hand, then at the envelope of cash on the ground. Slowly, he lowered the weapon and dropped to his knees. The sound of the handcuffs clicking into place was the loudest thing in the rail yard. As they led Strickland toward the transport van, he passed Jordan. Up close, Strickland looked haggard, his eyes darting with the frantic energy of a cornered rat. "You think you won?" Strickland whispered, his voice shaking. "Graves will have his lawyers bury you. You're nothing but a—" Jordan leaned in, his face inches from Strickland's. "Officer Strickland, you have the right to remain silent. I strongly suggest you start exercising it, because from this moment on, I am the only person who decides how many decades you spend in a federal cell, and I'm not feeling particularly merciful." Jordan watched as the van doors slammed shut. He looked up at the night sky, feeling the first cool breeze of autumn. The sting was a success, but the battle in the courtroom, the real demolition of the blue wall, was only just beginning. The federal courthouse in downtown Atlanta stood as a limestone fortress of accountability. On this sweltering Tuesday, it was the center of the world. For 11 months, the case of Banks versus Strickland had dominated headlines, evolving from a viral dashcam video into a sprawling saga of systemic corruption, drug cartels, and the fall of a political dynasty. Inside Courtroom 4B, the air was thick with the scent of floor wax and nervous sweat. Every bench was occupied. In the front row sat the Strickland 7, the men and women whose lives had been derailed by Strickland's planted evidence. They sat with their backs straight, their eyes fixed on the man who had once treated them like disposable statistics. Jordan Banks sat at the plaintiff's table, an island of calm in the storm. He wore a navy 3-piece suit, his hands folded neatly atop a leather portfolio. Beside him, David Sterling was a whirlwind of controlled energy, organizing a mountain of exhibits that would serve as the final nails in Greg Strickland's coffin. Across the aisle, Greg Strickland was barely recognizable. The broad-shouldered hammer of the I-85 had withered. His uniform was replaced by a cheap, ill-fitting suit provided by his public defender. His swagger had been replaced by a persistent, nervous tremor in his right hand. He stared at the floor, unable to meet the gaze of the jury or the man he had called boy on that fateful humid night. This was the final phase of the civil trial. The criminal convictions for racketeering and conspiracy were already a matter of record. But this, the pursuit of $15 million, was about the total liquidation of Strickland's existence. David Sterling stood for the closing statement. He didn't use a podium. He walked right up to the jury box, his voice a low, resonant thrum. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are not just here to talk about a traffic stop," David began. "We are here to talk about the price of a soul. Greg Strickland didn't just pull over a luxury SUV because he thought he saw a crime. He pulled it over because he thought he saw an easy target. He saw a man who, in his narrow, prejudiced mind, didn't belong in that car. And when he realized that man was a United States attorney, he didn't apologize. He doubled down. He planted drugs. He conspired with a drug lord. He attempted to burn a family alive in their beds. David pointed a finger directly at Strickland, who flinched. He thought his badge was a shield against the consequences of his own malice. He thought the blue wall would hide his bank accounts in the Caymans. Today, you are the ones who tear that wall down. You are the ones who tell every bully with a badge that their power ends where our rights begin. The jury, a mix of teachers, mechanics, and office workers, didn't blink. They watched Strickland with the cold detachment of scientists observing a specimen. The deliberations lasted exactly 52 minutes. When the buzzer rang, the sound felt like a gunshot in the silent room. As the jury filed back in, Strickland's lawyer whispered something to him. Strickland didn't react. He looked like a man already standing on the gallows. In the matter of Banks versus Strickland, the foreman read, his voice unwavering. On the count of malicious prosecution, we find for the plaintiff. On the count of civil rights violations under color of law, we find for the plaintiff. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, we find for the plaintiff. Jordan remained motionless, his face a mask of professional stoicism. We award compensatory damages in the amount of $5 million, the foreman continued. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. But the foreman wasn't done. And for punitive damages, meant to punish the defendant and deter others from such heinous conduct, we award the sum of $15 million. Strickland's head dropped to the table with a dull thud. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but Strickland shook it off. The math was simple. He was 39 years old. Even if he lived to be 100, he would never own a car, a house, or even a high-end television ever again. Every cent he earned making license plates or working a post-prison minimum wage job would be garnished until the day he died. He was financially erased, but the law wasn't finished. Judge Holloway, who had presided over the criminal trial, signaled for the bailiffs to bring Strickland to the center of the court for his criminal sentencing. The room fell into a deeper, heavier silence. "Gregory Strickland," the judge began, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You have spent a decade as a predator in a hero's uniform. You took a sacred oath and used it as a license to thieve, to frame, and to destroy. You are the reason citizens fear the very people sent to protect them." Strickland looked up, his eyes red and watery. "Your Honor, please, I have children. I was just a part of a larger system." "The system didn't plant that cocaine, Gregory. You did," Holloway replied. "And the system didn't order the hit on Mr. Banks' home. You did. Therefore, for the charges of racketeering and conspiracy to commit murder, I am sentencing you to 25 years in federal prison, and I am ordering that you serve this time at USP Coleman in the general population." The general population order was the death knell. A dirty cop in a high-security federal prison was a man with a target on his back. Strickland's knees gave out. He collapsed into the arms of the U.S. Marshals, his wails echoing off the high marble ceilings. "No, please, not the yard, they'll kill me! Jordan, help me!" Strickland screamed, reaching out toward the plaintiff's table. Jordan Banks stood up. He smoothed the front of his jacket and looked down at the man who had tried to ruin his life. "I told you on that highway, Greg," Jordan said, his voice quiet but audible to the entire room. "I told you to remember how good you felt then, because it was the last time you'd ever be happy. I don't give narrations anymore. I just sign the paperwork." As the marshals dragged Strickland out, his heels barking against the floorboards, the Strickland Seven stood up as one. There was no cheering, only the solemn, heavy satisfaction of justice finally served. The weeks following the trial saw the total dismantling of Strickland's legacy. Under the Son of Sam laws and the civil judgment, the court ordered the immediate seizure and liquidation of all his assets. Strickland's pride and joy was a 5,000-square-foot mansion in a gated community, built with kickbacks from Darnell Hayes. He had filled it with marble floors, a home theater, and a 4-car garage. On a grey Wednesday, Jordan Banks stood on the sidewalk outside that mansion. Beside him stood a foreman for a demolition crew. "You're sure about this, Mr. Banks?" the foreman asked, looking at the beautiful home. "You could sell this for a cool $2 million. Keep the change." Jordan looked at the house. He remembered the night Sarah sat shivering in the panic room while Strickland's goons poured gasoline on their rug. "I don't want the money from this house," Jordan said. "This house is a monument to every lie he ever told. Level it." The wrecking ball swung at noon. By Forsmere PM, the mansion was a pile of splintered wood and crushed drywall. In its place, over the following year, Jordan funded the construction of the Justice for All Center, a non-profit legal clinic that provided free representation for victims of police misconduct. He used the remaining $13 million of the judgment to endow it for the next 50 years. In the recreation yard of USP Coleman, inmate 89402, Greg Strickland, sat on a concrete bench. He had a jagged scar running from his ear to his chin, a gift from his 3rd day in the yard. He had no money for the commissary. No one took his calls. His wife had changed her name and moved to another state, taking the children with her. A young guard, no more than 22, walked by. He tapped his baton against the fence. "Hey, 89402, get to the mess hall. Move it!" Strickland stood up, his joints aching, his spirit broken. He looked up at the small patch of sky, visible through the layers of concertina wire. On a wall-mounted TV in the common room, he saw a news clip. It was Jordan Banks, recently sworn in as the youngest state attorney general in history. Jordan looked powerful, happy, and surrounded by his family. He was a man who had built a legacy of truth. Strickland looked down at his own hands, the hands that had planted the baggie, the hands that were now covered in the calluses of prison labor. He realized then that Jordan hadn't just beaten him in court. Jordan had replaced him. While Strickland was forgotten in a concrete box, the world was being made better using his own stolen wealth. The karma wasn't just that he was in prison. The karma was that he had become exactly what he used to hunt. A man with no name, no voice, and no future. Jordan Banks proved that arrogance is a trap that eventually springs on the one who sets it. He didn't just win a case. He used the weight of a corrupt system to crush the man who thought he was above the law. It's a powerful lesson. You should never mistake someone's professional restraint for weakness. Because when a man who knows the law decides to fight, he doesn't just win. He levels the playing field forever. If you found this story of ultimate justice and hard-hitting karma satisfying, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves seeing a bully get knocked down. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell, so you never miss our deep dives into the stories where the truth finally wins. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.